Hello, welcome everyone to the Learning Curve SG. So today in this episode, we want to talk about expectations and routines. And I'm very lucky and happy to have my colleague here, Mdm Noor. She's the discipline mistress of St. Gabriel Secondary School. But Mdm Noor, let's cut to the chase. I want to talk about expectations and routines today because every time when I walk past your class, I notice that your students are always very well behaved and their focus and attention to the lesson is always there. It is also not just towards the higher ability students, but it is towards all sorts of students within the school. So it seems like you are able to handle every single kind of boys that come into your lesson. So was wondering, are you able to share with us a little bit more about what expectations and routines mean to you personally, and why do you believe that it is something that is important to have it during our lesson?
Yes, thank you, Damon, for first of all, of course, giving me this opportunity to share something that is very dear.
Have to thank you.
Dear to my heart. In fact, I mean, on the side, even though you don't put me on a discipline team, I will do what I do. Actually,
Okay.
Okay. On the point of or expectation routines and how I get that across to my students, when I start my lesson for any class that I've got for the year,
Yes.
my first task at hand is to actually know the boys and they to know me. That is the first. It's like, you just meet a new friend, just meet new people, and you do not want to just start the ball rolling by teaching them. So actually it's to let them know who I am and I want to know who they are. And after I found out mostly about the boys, one thing they took away from that lesson, that class, that period, is this thing about me. To me, I told them, order. Without order, nothing can happen. So this order is something that I say is not to be fearful about. It's not something that I need to threaten you with in a class, because can you imagine? I asked them, can you imagine a class where there's a lot of chaos and a lot of people talking at the same time? Nothing can be heard. You cannot hear me. I cannot hear you. So it's more like buying into them about how we want our class to be. So most of the time, when I say this, it works. Even I do have years where certain cohort where we have challenging students. But in my class, I did tell them, you do not simply in the first session, you do not rob your students, your other classmates of their learning, and you do not disturb the teachers of them doing their job of teaching. These two you cannot do. And I always tell them, you can talk. I'm not teaching mannequins. My class is not a quiet class where there are mannequins seated and I just teach. My class needs you to be proactively, respectfully participate in the class, and we all, at the end of the day, learn something. So it's very simple. So the simplicity, the clarity helps. Just few simple expectations that I have. One voice, one person talk. When you step in, ready for the school. In fact, if I at this juncture, may I show this?
Sure.
This is actually what we have in our school.
Okay.
If the students do this, the Gabrielite moves, and this is done daily in class for every lesson, it will help and support teaching and learning.
Okay.
And the clarity of it is, students, when they come in, they know they have to be table ready. They then observe the teachers and greet them. Then they wait, they sit down, and they understand that the teachers will tell them about the lesson objectives, and the teacher will bring them to the existing knowledge. After that, with the active listening and active respectful participation, they go through the lesson with the teachers. And while they are doing that, teachers are continuously teaching them how to take notes. Because taking notes is a very useful skill. for every student, whether in the high ability right up to the low ability. The nature of the notes may be of different caliber, but still it is their own work. And that is, to me, a priceless learning experience.
Okay.
And going through the class and watching them writing the notes, making annotations to the worksheet is something that is empowering.
Yes.
Because the students know that you are aware that they are there, they are present there, and they are actually doing something with what you have given them. Yeah. So all these small things that happen in class, it is not it's not accidental. It has to be deliberate, intentional. And it can only be done if everybody's on the same page.
Yep.
The students know, okay, this is what is expected of us in class. Coming back to the power of routines, coming back to the power of expectations. It all boils down to this word. The word is act of care. So when we make sure that the place is conducive, the class is well arranged, airy, windows open, door open, everybody can, really listen to each other. It is really a moment where people can thrive.
Yep.
Teachers can thrive, learning and teaching, students can absorb more, in fact, ask questions. Yeah. That's what I observe. In classes where there's order.
Correct. So when there's order, students are able to learn, and when students are able to learn, they are happy. And when students are happy because of the learning, the teacher is happy because he or she feels that he's able to help the students to learn. And therefore, this creates this upward virtuous cycle, which helps build a positive classroom culture as well. And I think I took away some things from what you have shared. But before I share about what I took away from what you have just shared, right, I also want to share about my experience as a teacher when I first started off teaching. So when I first started off teaching, I gave a lot of instructions and routines on how the students should be, behaving and assembling and preparing for the lesson. But it's not always very successful. So I can tell them, hey, you need to do that, you need to do this. But there were many times that the students forget about doing it, or they don't feel like there's a need to actually go about doing it, which resulted in my classroom management not being very good when I first started off teaching. There was a lot of chaos, and like you rightfully shared, my students were not learning when I was a beginning teacher, especially. And I feel very frustrated. The culture within the class itself became quite negative. But I learned as I progressed, and I feel that I have improved along the way.
Wonderful.
However, I think the secret formula which you have shared, right, is that you need to get to know your students first. When you are able to understand the learner profile, their learning needs at the beginning of the module, at the beginning of the semester, I think and when the ice is broken, it's easier for you to actually tell them the expectations and routines for their particular lesson itself. Then on top of that, I hear that you do not just say, you need to do this, you need to do that, okay, for this particular routine, for this expectation. You explain to them the rationale. And the reason
is
the
buy-in.
The buy-in. You spend time to explain to them as well. You spend time to explain to our students that we need expectations and routines because we want to have a safe environment for learning. And you tell them, imagine that if the classroom is in a chaos, how can learning take place? If learning don't take place, then what is the objective of having a class? What's the objective of having a school, for that matter?
So in a way, even though this is very much from the teachers and then based on the wall, the co-ownership has to be done with the teachers and the students. The co-ownership of understanding this and unpacking this. Well, a few years back where I had to do it not on the 2 sessions. That means I was sensing that a few boys still feel that they can push boundaries and they want to be funny, and some of the boys, so that means the number of boys who are being funny can actually rock the conducive environment of the class. With that sensing, the next day I still don't start my lesson. it's okay. To me, it's an investment.
It's an
It's an
investment.
investment to actually buy, have that buy-in from them. In fact, if you have 80%, if you have 80% of them knowing what is right, then the 10% is actually can be influenced by the 90%. And knowing that you do this out of care, the 10% will know that she means business. She doesn't go around, just scold. Some boys felt that when there's order, you are thumbing them down. When order, it means you're forcing them to do what you want them to do. So we are turning it around. When you have that buying session, you actually asking them to know that, hey, this is what I want. Together as a class, we do it. However, I do give some flexibilities whenever. So I'll make sure there's flexibility. There's humor. All right? And we can laugh together, not at each other, but together with each other on certain things. And along the way, I teach them this. Because if you just pile them with expectations, this 10 expectations, 20 expectations, it's difficult. Children learn as they play and learn as they experience. So along the way, when I explain, if one or two got out of line, I will stop it nicely and reteach that expectation. So reteaching and then telling them, look, we are all learning how to behave in this class. Let's get this, okay, let's learn this faster. Let's work together as a team. So if, let's say, the third time he does it again, right, I find that it's the same boy, at first I will not handle him there in the class. He's outside the class, definitely outside the class. And this gives him that dignity. So when his other friends, because don't forget, okay, I want to share this. Don't forget, the boys who are good in your class, sometimes they are this boy who is naughty is his best friend. So he also doesn't like it if you put him down and make him embarrassed. So we need to understand that there's this kind of arrangement between them going on, relationship going on. We must protect each other's dignity. Hence, if we tell them, look, I'm helping him, and I think he has lots of ideas and contributions to share, we should encourage him to do what is right. And I want him to get as good as a mark as any of you here. So building him up, building these people up, they could see. And then I could actually heard one of them said, hey, relax lah bro. So relax like bro to that boy, right? It's actually a win for me. That means they are actually telling the other boy who is trying to be behaving. Exactly. And it helps. It really helps a lot.
Madam Noor, you have actually answered a question which I was about to ask you. And the question is, how can you set expectations and routines in an acceptable and fair manner which the students find it palatable? And I already hear from you that there has to be flexibility. There has to be flexibility, and sometimes as you dish out the expectations and routines, you say in a way that sounds very human, with some humor involved as well, as you do as you share to the students that these are the routines and expectations that they should be displaying during the lesson. And you also recognize that we will not have 100% buy-in.
Of course not.
You recognize that. Most importantly, you recognize that we may not have 100% buy-in. So, but what we have shared should cover at least 85 to 90, 95%
that is
of the
big
students.
Win already.
Which therefore leaves us maybe 5 to 10% of the students who may not want to actually adhere to the expectations and routines. And if that happens, we need to engage them on an individual basis. So I feel that you have a very pragmatic approach in setting expectations and routines. You make sure that you have flexibility in the rules, expectations, routines, you say it in a way that is reasonable, okay, and you sound human as you say it, not like you are a robot telling the students to become robots as well. And you try to cover at least 90 to 95% buy-in, with maybe the few 5 to 10% of the boys, okay, engaging them at an individual level.
Yes.
And ultimately, the students need to understand the rationale
Yes.
of why they need to have the routine within the class
Yes.
itself.
And you will
Yeah.
see them regulating themselves, self-regulate. So naturally, boys, being boys, especially Sec 1s, they're so excited and so energetic.
Yeah.
The minute you see outside in the canteen, they'll be
Yeah.
running around.
Yeah.
But the minute they enter the class, they will self-regulate according to the structure you have put in place. And structures always drive behavior. Always drives behavior.
But I would like to reframe that a little bit also.
Oh.
It's how you actually say the structure should be that influence how the behavior is being driven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But if you say it like a robot, right, and expect the students to be like robots, I don't think the structures, which is the expectations and routine, can actually come up with the desired behavior that we want.
Yes, yes. In fact, one video that actually really touched me most
Yeah.
is this Rita, this fantastic and famous lady in TED Talk. Her name is Rita something, I forgot. But what she said was very, very striking was, no one wants to learn from someone they don't like. So, but of course, we are not here for popularity contests. When I say like, you have to take it in a proper light. Like here means they see that you are firm but fair. They see that you, like you say that you correctly put just now, you actually give it to them in the most palatable way. It must be something that they can digest, they can swallow.
Yeah.
If they can see that even the naughtiest of boys will not find fault. They will try to do the funny stuff, but they know they have to come back into the line, and order.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that order is really, really sacred, and that order can only be achieved if both parties actually come to an agreement and say, this is what we want. This is the order that we want. It cannot be one-sided.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And that itself is an act of care.
Yeah.
The students now are caring for the teachers, because when the teacher comes in heavy with all the bags and marked assignments and all the whatever they need to show their students, well-planned lesson, they come in, they know, hey, my teacher's coming, I'm getting ready. And when we come in and we actually take note of their environment, whether it's clean for them, whether are they warm, the windows are open. Okay, fine, let's start. The act of care is really from both sides. Yeah, and I feel the difference. I can really feel the difference when I enter a class that the teachers and the students do not have that. They don't experience that wonderful act of care, right? It's a bit different, and then a classroom that have experiences care from both sides.
Yeah, I think this is really well said, because how should I put it? I can see very clearly that in order for expectations and routines to take root in a lesson, we need to know our students first. So the relationship between the teacher and the students has to be established first. And then after that, we explain the rationale to them, why routines and expectations are necessary, because we need to have a safe environment for students to learn, and also for teachers to teach. And the third thing is that you mentioned something along the lines of, no one likes to learn from someone you don't like. And finally, the idea of doing all these stems from wanting to care for our students is very strong.
Very strong.
And I think if you do this, all these, right, and our students can sense that actually deep down you are trying to care for them, they will reciprocate the right behavior of exhibiting the expectations and routines necessary for a lesson to be conducted well, so that they can learn well.
They can learn, and then takeaways from there.
Yeah.
And closing, like what you rightly always during our PD sessions, the closure of the lesson, telling us, okay, this is what we learned. If we didn't reach it, then probably we will together as a class, let's bring this forward to the next lesson, and please remember to do that, and we can talk about it. So this continuity is like knitting. It's like knitting. When you knit, if those people would knit, when you knit a sweater, you have to take from the previous loop. You cannot disregard that loop and then go on to the next one.
Yeah, so it's like when we teach our students during lessons, right, that we have this lesson flow whereby we need to activate prior knowledge.
Exactly.
So when we want students to learn expectations and routines, sometimes we need to help them recall a little bit on what they are expected to behave.
Exactly.
And then give the necessary positive affirmation if they remember and then they exhibit the right behavior.
Yes, and this will reinforce it further.
Yeah, correct.
With care, of course, I guess most of the time, probably I have one or two along the way that have come some friction. But usually I find that with friction, there's conversation.
Yeah.
So I had frictions with.
That's another way of knowing the students, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So conversation. So what we do is hey, come, let's after school find him, sit down, find out what's going on, talk to the parent, and that guy, the boy now is in the student now is in Sec 5.
Yeah.
But the conversation still carry on, and there's this respect between both of us. To me, that itself is a learning experience. So we don't teach the subject, we teach the person, we teach the student. And I love what we are doing. No, I am so happy in a school setting where this is the main crux of what we do every day. The student is at the center and we are creating learning moments for them.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. Wow, well said, well said. Okay. Madam Noor, maybe I want to shift our conversations a little bit to another type of routine because I think so far we have mentioned more on how a classroom, how classroom administration, how a lesson running routine should be carried out during a lesson. But I think when students learn, they have a lot of interaction with one another. So as I think with your number of years of service with our school, sometimes our boys can be a little bit direct when they have conversations with one another. For example, if let's say I ask a classmate about how can I do this question, then he'll say, "Oh, you look at this, you look at that. Then use your brain lah."
Yes.
So the person who replied is just being direct, but I think the way he replies may cause some hurt and sadness, to the person who asked the question. Would you have any ideas on how we can build a routine where students interact more positively with one another?
Yeah. I think you hit the spot because when I talk with my other colleagues from other schools, DMs from other schools, this is something that is really on the rise, which is unkind words, unkind remarks, and sometimes they are from friends, and you see them best of friends eating together, sitting together, having lunch. However, the remarks are very curt and can be hurtful.
Yes.
Looking from the student management side, if we look at it right, we always have this understanding. The framework is always to upstream wise, we empower them, we advocate. So the advocating of kind words, of caring relationships is a must. So that is under our formal student management framework. Advocate, always advocate. But if it's a setting where in a class, where in a canteen where you hear, so my advice would be, if we want this to be a routine in a way, all right, where teachers see it as something that we can follow through and there's expectations. We can be deliberate about it, explicit about it. Okay, so being deliberate, explicit, and consistent is key. So wherever we are, we can be at the parade square, we can be at the canteen, we can be in the hall, listening to the morning performance. This is key. The word I use is wherever we are. When we hear uncaring words, unkind remarks, we must take that moment to actually explicitly be there, find out what's happening, or listen out and say, hey, shall we be caring to each other? We don't have to nag at them, but we just say, hey, shall we be caring to each other? If it's a very, we can do a candid one if they are having fun. Hey, maybe a better word would be useful, And we are adults, so we can actually sense what we can see we can sense the tone of the atmosphere, the environment. So if the candid tone, we give a candid advice. Hey, come on, there's a better way to say it. Why not we say, why don't we just use other words? Say that other words. In fact, you can ask them. They know the words. So let's say if in the hall, in a formal setting, we can actually quietly, deliberately tell them, hey, that's not nice. Shall we use other words? So when they know you, they know who you are, and if we can copy that in all teachers, everybody speaks the same language. So wherever they go, I'm in the hall, hey, this teacher will stop me because I say unkind words. When I'm in the at the bus stop, the teacher happens to be there, and the St. Gabrielite teachers will say, hey, that's not nice. Remember our values? But we don't have to go through a lecture session. We just nudge and say, hey, come, let's be more caring. So this let's be more caring, let's be more kind at that moment before it breeds into a familiarity amongst them. That's important. So in my class, as I give you an example of my Set 1 boy, Set 1 class, I received them this year. I noticed there's this tendency of saying, it is what it is. So when your friend tells them, hey, please give me back my eraser, you spot my pen, it is what it is. Sometimes it doesn't look as though he's being, it's not a big thing, but we need to stop it at that moment by saying, hey, it's not nice. Shall we say something else? I think you owe him an apology. Why don't you return it to him? It's not caring. And then we carry on with our lesson. So the nudging and moving on with the lesson, the nudging and bringing them towards something else is actually very useful because it creates consistency. Our boys need consistency.
Yes. So I think you have rightfully shared, if I interpreted correctly, when we see students interacting in an unkind manner with one another, we have to leverage that teachable moment. We have to leverage on that teachable moment and help the students make the correction there and then. How can we do that? I think you've also rightfully shared that, first of all, we should get the boy to refer back to the school values and ask him to think whether what he has uttered is it consistent with the value of care and respect towards another person, and then help him internalize that if, let's say, he use an unkind word to another person, the other person gets angry, he may start using unkind words back on him. And when he's on the receiving end, of the unkind words, he's going to lash back on his friend again, which results in a vicious cycle, which could cause them to start serious arguments or even manhandle one another. So I think we can capture those teachable moments, help the students link back the school values, and then help them understand that when someone says or do something negative to another person, there's a high chance that a negative reaction may come back on him. And then this results in a downward vicious cycle, which they don't want. And if we can, maybe we role model a little bit at that point in time to share with the two boys that we saw who didn't interact well with one another, how they should be, talking to one another. And I think that helps. But this got me thinking that if I actually captured that teachable moment and I helped the students internalize that they should be more positive towards one another, can I use that particular example during my actual lesson? Because if I want my students to discuss, certain questions in a small group or with a partner, I can maybe use that example on how they can actually talk with one another to establish an interaction routine on top of my
Lesson.
classroom routines.
Yeah, that will be very useful. In fact, in now that we are into group work, ensuring that there's interaction between, and they collab with boys, with their own classmates. So, when we move around the classrooms and we notice that there's these two boys are not in line with our expectation.
Yeah.
So what do? Do we stop at the class and everybody else stops learning?
Yeah.
It need not be. If it's contained in that area, then probably we will talk to that two boys personally, and it need not be long. Because we have done the investment. Remember the start of the year or the start of the month of the term, where when we enter the class, they know our expectation. So our words will be, remember our expectations. Can you recall what is not in line with what we have already understood to be established in your class? So they need to tell us. So of course they have, if they are already fighting, obviously it is to be separated and we handle it after
that's
class.
another issue.
But if it's just unkind words, and if they can reiterate it to us and then apologize, put them back. Put them back together, continue with lesson. When you have lesson closure, you can pepper in an affirmation. There are boys here who have learned more than what we have learned today. They have learned how to work with their friends when they don't agree. When they are not in agreement, how then do you reconcile that and still carry out with your project? Affirm it, and then when the boys leave, pull these two again. Now that is visibility. The rest of the people could see. So visibility is very, very key when you are doing routine expectation. Bring them out, of course, with dignity. Let them rest go, and then talk to them. Say, this is what I want. Next time, let's not have that again. And then leave them.
You're absolutely right, because if you are able to capture how they interact during the lesson, it gives the students the idea that a teacher is actually observing and is being very observant. He or she is being very attentive to how we should be interacting with one another during the lesson, and I think that will be very helpful.
Yes.
That will be very helpful.
That will create bonds. Really. When I know that my lecturer, if I'm an adult learner, I know that my lecturer is helping me out at every section of my learning, every point of my learning. I'll feel very how should I say, relieved, safe, and I know that if I need any help, my lecturer is there. The same goes for students. Students need to know that, hey, I'm here, I'm safe. I can actually learn at any juncture of my learning where I don't understand. I know my teacher is there to support because she is aware of what's happening in the class. So to be aware, to be vigilant is actually an act of care. It is so much of an act of care. And being that alone, if it is multiplied, and copied by everybody in the school,
it'll be amazing.
Teaching or non-teaching, it's amazing. It's a human thing. It's a human need to be respected. Human need to be engaged. Human need to be accepted, and human need to know that if I've done something wrong, I'm not labeled. I'm not condemned. That's a human need. So in my class, I've got boys who, in the first juncture of January, February, they tried their very best, but now they are together. My G2 boys in Malay, they are together in a class, and they know what is expected. Strangely enough, outside of class, they behave differently. And when I walk around, I ask, what changed? I did ask them, what changed? Even today it happened. How come this didn't happen in our class? No answer from them. Of course, we know the answer, but I don't expect them to answer. We do not. As educators, this is what our role is now. To me, in this era of the 21st century CC, learning skills and the skills needed, right? All the more our presence as teachers is super important, because the E21CC skills, the pivotal platform is actually rests on values.
Correct. So yeah,
It rests on values.
I agree with you. So E21CC is important because it falls within the 21CC framework, and the heart of the 21CC framework is about values.
Yes.
And when we want our students to display values, I think the way in order for them to display it is through communication, which is E21CC.
Yes.
It is also through collaboration, which is another E21CC as well. And if our students cannot communicate and collaborate well, which is two of the 9 E21CCs, how are we able to expect them to be adaptive, inventive, and critical in their thinking?
Because that's the first.
That's the communication and collaboration. E21CC's competencies are the foundation.
Yes, the foundation.
For our students to build on, to develop their adaptive thinking, inventive thinking, and critical thinking skills.
Yes. So they need to know how to say things properly to people.
And if they start, like you rightfully mentioned, label people during their interaction, the communication will start breaking down. And when it breaks down, I think it's difficult for them to develop the other competencies within the 21CC framework. And therefore, I think the teaching and learning during the lesson drops as well. So I think I totally agree with you that we must have interaction routines layered into our classroom routines,
academic routines,
and lesson flow routines also.
And that takes two ways. As I always believe in our values of care, respect, responsibility. And these three values actually will support what we do in class, outside of class, academic or not. So act of care, to be able to reiterate the routine and expectations in a manner that is calm, in a manner that is able to be received by our students, and it's easier for us to actually do it in that manner. It supports both our development, ourselves as a teacher, and them as a student. I can't imagine going to a class where it's like a battle every day. It will impede my passion, impede my motivation to even teach. So it's actually caring about ourselves. When we self-care is to actually making sure that we have clarity of what we want in the class. That's self-care.
But it seems like if we care for our students, actually we are also caring for ourselves.
Exactly so. So you're rightly pointing out. So there was one time in class when I said, "Hey, gentlemen, how long were you? How long is your day?" Say, "Ma'am, we finish at 2 to 3. Sitting or standing? Sitting. How do you think the teachers who have the same number of periods like you, do they sit and teach? Stand. Who's younger? You. So what do you think we feel?" Then they're silent. So this, although it is not really discipline, it's more conversation, but they are needed. You need this conversation to move them into realizing the importance of routines and expectations, the importance of being caring, respectful, and being responsible students. There's no way we can do it without conversation. Without our this. Exactly. There's no way. I cannot imagine doing that without connecting with my students.
Correct.
Connecting is the way to go. Like what one of the scientists have actually pointed out, misbehaviors actually comes out from being disconnected.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So when people are disconnected, that's where they feel like they don't belong, and therefore they will do things that are not what you want. But if they feel belong and they're connected, is as a class, in their own different ways, in their own different light, them as an individual. Okay, I think they understood that, hey, I am who I am. I don't have to be who you are. I don't have to be like him. I don't have to be like A or B or C. I'm D. Fine.
Okay.
So it is such a nice class to actually welcome to your lesson and say, hey, what are we going to do today? What did we do in last week? Oh, okay. Because everything is ready. It just settles down, and you are set to just grow that seedling, to become a plant.
Wow. Well said. Well, I feel very inspired already. Okay.
I enjoy coming to school every day because of that.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think we have spoke a lot with regards to expectations and routines. Maybe just let me round up a little bit on what I have gathered from your sharing. So I think we know that we need to have expectations and routines because we want to create a safe environment
Yes.
for our students to learn and also for our teachers to teach. Because when the class is in a chaos, there is no way that learning and teaching can ever take place, which defeats the objective of having a class or a school.
Yeah.
And how you go about doing it is that you need to get to know your students first, which
Yes.
brings us to this word connection, which you just used.
Yes.
We need to connect with our students first, get to know them first, break the ice.
Yeah.
Then we lay out the expectations and routines with rationale.
Yes.
Because if we just say that you must do this and that without any rationale, I think the students will feel very weird because they might construe that they are treated like robots, that they are just supposed to comply to the
Your
instructions
demands.
that
Yes.
I have keyed into the system or I've set into the system.
Yes. Yeah.
So rationale is also important.
So it's very cold, very clinical.
Yeah, very cold, clinical.
Clinical. You don't like the
Yeah,
environment.
which then kills off the connection.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so we start with the connection, get to know the students, then we lay out the rationale, we lay out the expectations and routines with the rationale.
Yes.
And then most likely they are going to accept it. And we say our expectations and lay out our expectations and routines in a flexible manner because we know our students, so sometimes we can adjust so that 90 to 95% are willing to accept it. What about the 5% who don't accept it? That is where we probably need to have further conversations with them to create deeper buy-in with those few students.
Yes.
But if 90-95% are willing to accept the expectations and routines, you have a high chance of them trying to pull that 5% in, which makes your life easier.
Yeah, and this because they are their best friends too. So they will flow with the tide.
Yeah.
And this consistency, you have to do it consistently, create calm.
Correct.
It creates calm in the class. When they are calm, that's where magic can happen.
Correct. But having summarized all this, having summarized all of what I thought you have shared, I feel that the students who are the listeners and the recipients of the expectations and routines must infer that you come from an angle of care for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the irony is that when the students feel that you care for them and they reciprocate, then you feel happy. When you feel happy, you are creating care for yourself.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I don't know whether I've summed up rightfully what they have shared.
Agree. Both, I think it is a win-win. It's real
we create win-win.
Real win-win.
Correct.
And that's what we want. The school is a safe place for them to learn, make mistakes, and know that they can get better daily. Yeah. And it's always a fresh start every day. So, I mean, I'm a discipline mistress, right? I don't bring their discipline cases inside the class. So there are, just a way to round it up, there were instances where I had in the past classes that were behaving in my class, but outside my class they created misbehaviors that they get them referred to the discipline team. Well, I was there handling the cases, but when I'm inside the class, that's it. Forget about the cases. I am now teaching you the subject of Malay, and I'm teaching you as I'm a boys who are studying the Malay language. That's all.
But the thing is that I've seen you in action in other classes that's not having a Malay lesson. You are still able to handle them very well. So kudos to you, because I believe that you have actually used all those things that you have shared on the students, which make things work.
Yes.
Yeah, but
it's no magic. It is actually consistency.
Yeah.
And the belief that this is the way to go.
Yeah.
So the belief, the buying in, it will just radiate. It will just come up from yourself. And when you're into the class, you will just do what you're supposed to do. arrange everything in order, stand up, are we all okay? Let's greet each other. Good morning, sit down, please. And that tone that is able to actually capture them and say, usually it's noisy and now it's not noisy. So you rock their boat in a way to say that, hey, this is something else. And they will open for learning on that day. Yeah, rather than the normal shouting.
Yeah, okay. So I think we have shared quite a bit already.
Yes.
Madam Noor, to close up the session, maybe would you like to share with our audience one nugget of wisdom or knowledge which you have that they can take away with regards to expectations and routines?
Okay. I think I'll end off with a myth. Okay. This is a myth.
Okay.
Discipline has always been shunned by people that, oh, discipline is very difficult to do, very strenuous. However, discipline, when it comes to right now, we're talking about routines and expectations, it is not a controlling tool.
Okay.
It shouldn't be seen as a controlling tool. I must have this routine so that my boys will behave like that. It is not. It is more of a, how should I put it, as it's a platform for us to build trust, all right? Trust between each other. That you come to school, you carry your bag, you buy the books, your textbook, you come here, and you trust and I trust that we can learn something from there in a very conducive environment. And that actually create that buy-in. So I started with a myth. It's a controlling. And now buy-in. It's the opposite. It's a direct opposite. I'm not controlling you, and now you're buying it now. So we must not, I guess we have to change our mindset to say that there's nothing in this world that can exist without order. The planets exist with order. You know what we are doing now, if a factory, you ask any engineer, without order, kaput, nothing will happen. So why then should our class be without order? Our class should have order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well said.
I will end up with saying that with all that, right, you end up getting another value of our school, which is respect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well
So
said.
the responsibility of the student to actually care and respect, all that actually is, can come up from all these actions that we do every day, daily, consistently, with care.
Thank you, Madam Noor. So we should see expectations and routines as a platform for building trust and buy-in with our students. Okay, it is not something to control them. Okay, it's actually something that is very useful to help us create trust with our students. And I think with that, we have come to the end of today's episode. And if you like what you have heard and what you have seen, do give a like, a share, and subscribe so that more educators can actually hear what Madam Noor has shared. So with that, we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.